welcome to Jeff Koinange Holiday Special Kenya at 50. It is a new year, and yes, we are continuing on our holiday show one last time until we continue our lives. And we're still looking back at 2013, looking forward. It's brand new year 2014. With me today, two giants, if you will. If you don't get anything from these folks, then you are watching the wrong channel, listening to the wrong folks, because these two are giants in their respective field. Closest to me, constitutional lawyer, former head of the anti-corruption unit, PLO Lumumba. He knows what he talks about. He speaks from the heart. You need to pick up a pen and paper. Right next to him, journalist, publisher, political analyst, another man who quotes everything from Greek mythology to Chinua Achebe. And we'll be coming to you from the Windsor Golf Hotel and Country Club throughout. So all I can ask you right now is to sit back. These two folks are ready to rock and roll. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you. Fantastic. Excellent. Gentlemen, what a year 2013 was. And to cap it all off, December was I guess for lack of a better, traumatic and tumultuous month. First off, the biggest story of the last maybe half century, maybe all our lives combined, the biggest story, the death of the icon himself, Nelson Mandela. Your thoughts, gentlemen, as you watched the memorial ceremony at Soweto at FMB Stadium, and then the funeral all the way in Onu. PLO, your thoughts, what was going through your mind?
You know, Nelson Mandela stands out as a giant among giants. This is an individual who spent 27 years in jail. This is an individual who, in the face of difficulties, remained calm, cool, and calculated. This is an individual who midwifed a process that many a doomsayer had said would not and could not be midwifed. This is an individual who knew that there is, in a manner of speaking, a time to occupy the stage and a time to leave the stage. In a continent where people seek power and cling to power, this is an individual who recognized that leadership is about service. All men must die because death is a necessary end that must come when it will come. But history will remember this man as a man to be emulated.
Absolutely. Barack, do you agree that this was one of the most watched events ever in the history of television?
I think that, among other things, it actually brought the rest of the world to a standstill. And taking off where PLO has left off about a time comes when everybody must die. In fact, one could go a step further and say that there are other people who don't die. That somebody like Nelson Mandela has been immortalized. He immortalized himself because he believed in something, stood for something, was ready to die for something, and therefore he was able to capture during this very final farewell the imagination of the entire global community, and his spirit is going to live on and on and on.
No doubt.
So Nelson Mandela is dead. Long live Nelson Mandela. That is what I hear Barack say.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Viva Mandela, viva. Let me ask you this, PLO. Let me ask you this. Were there leaders who were present at that memorial, both of you gentlemen, who were a little uncomfortable with all the accolades, all the ululations, all the praise being heaped on this one man, which they will never get in their lifetimes?
You know, Chinua Achebe said that a woman without teeth, and that must include a man without teeth, is uncomfortable when bones are mentioned. Robert Gabriel Mugabe was particularly irritated because this is an individual who was great in his own right, but has refused to leave the stage, suffers from what we call the prima donna syndrome, the refusal to leave the stage. And I think he was most uncomfortable. And there is no shortage of other leaders who have refused to leave the stage. And I'm quite certain that they were angry that this is a man who is being venerated. This is a man who is being immortalized. The praise is going to him. And that was a good thing. I think the lesson to be drawn from what we saw in South Africa, in Pretoria on that day, is that Africa can produce great men. and that Africa is capable of being an example to the world, and that aside from saying good things about Mandela, we should do the good things that he did in his lifetime.
Good point, good point. I'm going to switch gears because I could talk about Mandela all day, and we should, but we must move on. And I'll take from the point that you made, PLO. Seems like very few people learned from those events in South Africa, because a few days after that, the coup attempt in Juba, Barack. I mean, come on. Less than 2 years, or a little after 2 years since they had their independence, there's already trouble in paradise.
South Sudan has been a powder keg. It's been a tragedy waiting to happen any time, because I think they took the wrong model, that they modeled themselves against the Kenyan example. And the Kenyan example, if we may ask ourselves, what is it about? It's about consolidation and control and domination of power. That those who get into the space of power want to control procurement, public procurement, that is public finance and public audit. Then they want to control the legal system and control what we may want to call the legitimate instruments of violence, state violence for that matter, and therefore this very, very unhealthy competition follows. And then it takes a tribalized kind of definition, so that you have got the Dinka tribal elite who are posing and posturing as if they are eating. Then you've got the Nuer on the other side who are feeling that they are left out. You've got the Shilluk who also feel that they would want a piece of the action. And it's been simmering for some time. I think it's going to get worse before it can get better.
Yeah, and very worrying, isn't it, PLO?
It must be worrying. In fact, this is the time when one prays. Unfortunately, our prayers cannot be answered, that John Garang Dimabior was around, because that was a titan. That is a man who understood the dynamics of South Sudanese politics. But the players who are there now, whether it's President Salva Kiir or Riek Machar, you remember Riek Machar at the height of the struggle actually defected to the Khartoum government. You also remember that Lama Ko also defected to the Khartoum government. So as Barack says, South Sudan worries one in a major way, because aside from the Dinka, the Shilluk and the Nuer, we also have problems in Equatoria. We also have problems in the border with Kenya. So that if the international community does not intervene in these early stages, then we have another problem in the offing. And that is not to say that there are no other problems. You and me know the Central African Republic is burning, Mali is in trouble, Mauritania is in trouble. Africa needs to address her problems very seriously, and I look forward to the African Union coming out and leading from the front to ensure that we don't allow these countries to degenerate into civil war.
PLO, I'm going to pick up from the point Barack made earlier on about South Sudan taking the Kenyan template and adopting it as their own. Big mistake.
Big mistake, but what they didn't realize is that the Kenyan template only works in Kenya. What they don't know, that our brand of ethnicity is also a self-healing ethnicity, and it can only work here. But if you export it to another country and want to adopt it in that other country, it will only cause problems. And they have now realized that the history of the Dinka, the history of the Nuer, the history of the Shilluk and the Equatorians and others is such that if you don't deal with the issues in a comprehensive manner and understanding their psychology, it is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And the tragedy is, as Baraka said, they have also acquired this creed of greed. The creed of greed, which was introduced in this country by the Ndegwa Commission, that you eat where you are tethered. They normally say that a goat eats where it is tethered. This creed is dangerous, and it can only destroy a young country. It must be remembered that Kenya adopted that creed a little later in her life, and therefore it can work here but not in another country.
Yeah, Barack, you agree?
I agree completely, and let's also add to that the fact that they also have got the challenge of Sudan itself to deal with, that what they are doing and what is happening there is music to the ears of Omar Hassan el-Bashir, and that he will be stoking the fires. Remember, there is the unresolved question of the border between South Sudan and Sudan. There is the question of Abyei, and these are interest groups from the north, which will also be coming in to fan and stoke the fires further. So this is the moment for the African Union, which keeps on talking about African solutions to African problems, to now come in and address this issue. They do not have to wait for somebody to go to the ICC before they can come and say, we want an African solution to this African problem.
Absolutely, Barack. In fact, that's a great segue to my next question, PLO, which was the African Union is only interested in one story and one story alone, standing up to the ICC. And that, come on, there are other issues.
Of course. You know, one of the most amazing things, Jeff, is that so much energy was expended. Look at the energy, the enthusiasm with which the African Union moved from Addis Ababa to New York to The Hague. If a quarter of that energy could be expended in the budding problem of South Sudan or in the problems in the Central African Republic, Africa would be in a good place. But the tragedy of the African Union is that it never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. I hope this time round they'll not miss this opportunity and resolve this problem.
Absolutely. Barack, before we go to break, we have to discuss that and come back to Kenya because it all ties up. And the biggest story of last year, and I guess will be one of the biggest stories of 2014, is these 3 cases at the ICC, but in particular the 2, the president and the deputy president. It just doesn't seem to, it's the big elephant in the room.
Yes, and the moment of truth is coming. Remember, President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda was sending coded messages to the ICC and to the international community during the celebrations of our 50th anniversary last year. He was telling them that if you do not know the medicine, we have got the medicine and we are going to give you the medicine. We are going to show you how, which means that next month, and it's not very far, it's just a month away when we expect that the president should possibly be showing up before the ICC. It's going to be a very telling moment.
PLO, do you see him actually showing up? Do you see him leaving the country, getting on a plane? Because the rhetoric around him, every one of those, for lack of a better word, the sycophants, the lackeys, the hangers-on, they're saying that plane will not leave the runway.
You know, if I were President Kenyatta, I would actually go to The Hague. I would be sending a statement that I'm here. I take this matter seriously. I'm of the considered view that I ought not to be here and I want to prove my innocence. The friends that he has who are trying to tell him not to attend, those are enemies. Those are people who don't understand the dynamics of international politics. He'll become a pariah. He'll have a mark of Cain upon his forehead, and the international community will shun him. The proper advice, what he needs to hear, is that his presence there will be a major and clear demonstration that he believes in the law and that he is prepared to defend himself in the eyes of the law.
Worst case scenario, Barack, if he doesn't go?
Doesn't go, then of course you expect that warrants of arrest will be issued. There are no two ways about this, because the court must behave like the court, and the court will follow the letter and the spirit of the law. Now, when warrants of arrest are issued, of course, that is going to be the telling moment, because then the people who have been posturing as friends, and one is a lot more focused on the international postures and asking whether they are going to continue now showing that convoluted solidarity, or whether the question of their own bilateral arrangements with various members of the international community will come to play. And when we talk about issuing of warrants of arrest and sanctions against the president and the regime, we are not talking about a children's tea party. We are talking about people being barred from doing business with this country. We're talking about the multinational corporations which are in this country. The ones people like Edwin Dwale were telling last year, pack up and go. That moment of truth will come. The moment when you are on international carrier will not be allowed to land in some of the airports all over the world. We are talking about a moment when even people can tell you that we don't want our currency to circulate in your country because you are locked out. Ask the people in Sudan, in Khartoum.
Absolutely, gentlemen. That's a bone of contention. That's a story that's not going to go away. I want to talk more about that after the break. Also, is there a rift in the Rift Valley? It looked like that December tour that the two made. I don't know, was it more than just noise, or is there a rift developing in the rift? Let's take a break, gentlemen. Come back, talk more about that. You are indeed watching Jeff Koinange Holiday Special, Kenya at 50. It is a new year, and no two better persons to have on the show than Barack Maluka and PLO Lumumba. They break it down. They call it as they see it. And yes, they do it without fear or favor. We're coming to you straight from the Windsor Golf Hotel and Country Club and Jeff Koinange Holiday Special, Kenya at 50. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange Holiday Special, Kenya at 50, coming to you from the Windsor Golf Hotel and Country Club. It is a new month and a new year, and we have to look back in order to move forward. Who better to do it? To do it with than Barack Maluka and PLO Lumumba, two of the best and the brightest minds. 2 words: sit back, gentlemen. That year, 2013, in December, again, a tumultuous month. The big two, if you will, the president deputy decided to take a tour of the Rift. Out of the blue, they decided, let's go to the Rift to calm fears, to calm nerves. And they went and they made a hell of a lot of noise, if you will. They were, you could see there was a lot of anger coming out. My question to you both is there a rift developing in the Rift Valley? Barack?
The rift was always there. We had some very cosmetic kind of healing, because the issues of 2007, 2008 were glossed over for purposes of political conveniency. And you can see that these two eventually managed to marshal the so-called communities behind them, and they were able to be the first beyond the bridge and got into power. Now, there is a very fundamental mistake that was made here, that somebody actually imagines that they can craft a duopolistic state where power is going to be shared half-half. It doesn't happen, first of all. Where does that leave everybody else in the country? But more fundamentally, I don't think it was even an easing of tempers or cooling of tempers. It was a question of people sending each other carefully coded and loaded messages that the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is telling people, among them his deputy, William Ruto, that, look, I'm in charge. Yes, we are in this thing together, but for the time being, these are 10 years. If everything goes well, I'm in charge. And I'm going to be the one to decide who is appointed where, even where we may have certain negotiations and deliberations. For you, wait for your 10 years. And when my 10 years have ended and your 10 years come, if we are still going to be holding together, we will give you the opportunity. For the time being, keep your dogs on a short leash. And Deputy President William Ruto sending a similar coded message to his partner in government, President Kenyatta, basically through his barking dogs. And I've spoken a little earlier elsewhere that it's not unlike when there is the village night runner, and the parents talk about the village night runner and in the presence of the children. You see, when the so-called night runner materializes, one of the smallest kids will say, behold, the night runner. But the parents will be the first ones to say, wait, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with this child?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what
Bill, you agree?
I can't agree with you, Mo, and with Barack. The thing, as I see it, is that there is a rift in the rift and in the coalition. In a presidential system, you may have a partner with whom you lie on the same bed, but only one person's dreams must carry the day, the dreams of the president. In the minds of the Rift Valley Brigade, they think that even the dreams of the deputy president must carry the day, and that is why I think in their mind, this is a coalition government. It is not. This is President Kenyatta's administration, and it is his agenda that must carry the day. And there is a sense in which when I want to listen and understand what Deputy President Ruto is saying, I don't listen to President Ruto, Deputy President Ruto. I listen to his hangers-on. I listen to Keter. I listen to my good friend Murkomen. When they speak, I know Ruto is speaking. So there is indeed a rift in the rift. But I believe that President Kenyatta has tried to nip it in the bud. That is the reason why he had this trip in the month of December, to tell the Rift Valley Brigade we are moving in the same direction. But remember, as Baraka said, this is my watch, this is my call. These are my 10 years, and you will have your 10 years. I don't know whether President Kenyatta has looked at the crystal ball and he thinks that they'll have another 10 years.
Yes, the hand of God. Yeah. Because when you're talking about 20 years, you must also leave a lot of space for the hand of God in all this. Where is the hand of God? What crystal ball has the president looked into to see that actually for the next 20 years? Yeah. Because something tells me that the name William Ruto is going to be on the ballot paper, the presidential ballot paper, in 2017.
Do you agree with that, PLO? Do you think William Ruto's name will be on in 2017?
I don't. I must disagree with Barack on this. I think that William Ruto is politically savvy enough to know that he cannot throw his hat in the ring at this stage. I think he'll cool his brigade and he will allow himself to play the second fiddle and allow President Kenyatta to run for a second term. Remember, I'm using the word run because it is not guaranteed. Who knows what may happen between now and 2017, and we have a totally different dispensation and President Kenyatta loses the election. These are possibilities that you cannot rule out in a democratic dispensation. And who knows? Let us be bold. Who knows what may happen at The Hague? Who knows?
That's right.
And I think as a country, we ought to be prepared for any eventuality.
Barack, let's not forget, there's the code factor as well, or is code cordless at this point?
Of course, they say in Kiswahili, kuwa vita vya panzi, furaha ya kunguru, which is like saying that when you have the insects fighting, that you've got the crow feeling very happy that it's about to find something to eat. Yes. So this, and I'm afraid that I don't agree with my friend Professor here, because William Ruto has got this grain. He's a very restless politician.
Extremely ambitious.
And which is okay for any politician, but you must also know how to nurse your ambition and sometimes to keep it under the till until the right moment. You can look at 1997 with the birth of UDM, that he came up as part and parcel of the team that helped KANU in the so-called YK 92 and then 90. That period between 92 and 97, that they were already forming UDM with people like Cyrus Jirongo, and they were giving President Moi hell. Eventually, he had to use his political professorial prowess to be able to rein them in. Then you can look at what happened in after the 2007 elections, and it began much the same way. In the fullness of time, they had completely abandoned Raila. Remember that in the lead up to the elections last year, the sing-song was that Raila Amolo Odinga was the person who took William Ruto to The Hague.
That's right.
The tune has changed. Yeah. Or rather, the words have changed. The tune is the same.
But PLO, let's agree with this one thing.
Yes.
William Samoei Arap Ruto is the linchpin in any political talk or equation or scenario, isn't he?
The Rift Valley vote basket is very large. And for the moment, William Samoei Ruto has the pulse of Rift Valley. And I think in any formation, he's a very key factor. Somebody told me just this afternoon that William Ruto is a younger version of Raila Odinga. I do not know what he means.
He means they are restless.
He's a restless soul.
And serial shifters.
But the truth be told is that both of them have a hold on their communities. And for that reason, you cannot ignore them. But I hold the view that as they learn and appreciate the dynamics of Kenyan politics, there is a sense in which they will use that constituency to good effect. And once again, I will disagree with Barack, and I am prepared to bet that this individual, if he is available, he'll not run as the president in 2017, but will play second fiddle to Uhuru Kenyatta.
We're gonna revisit that as time goes on. But let's face it, though. This man is a powerful individual, and he knows his might. But it just goes to show that Kenyan politics is ethnic-driven. Let's face it.
Yes, it is ethnic-driven, and particularly over the past 7-8 years, we have really redefined the whole notion of ethnicity in politics, that we have got such people as ethnic kingpins, that they are owners of ethnic voting colleges, that they mobilize everybody and they own people. And when you listen to these people saying, my people, the notion of ownership expressed in that expression of my people is the same as how you own your pair of shoes, that you can decide to give them to your grandfather in the village, that you can decide to sell them to the man called Shuba Nandebe, or you can decide that, yes, you can decide to trade them in. And we have got these ethnicized electoral colleges, and William Ruto, for now, is the kingpin in Kalenjin, Rift Valley.
And the saddest thing, PLO, is the fact that despite the fact that, we saw the burial and we saw the life of one of, history's most amazing individuals, Nelson Mandela, who was himself a Xhosa, who was not majority. He was elected by the ANC, but he was not majority. He was not Zulu. Here, everything is driven. Here, ethnically driven. The Rift Valley block, Central block, Western block, Nyanza block. Can't we learn anything from what happened down south?
No, we are incapable of learning. If the Kenyan population knew, the typical Kenyan population has great contempt for the electorate. They see the electorate as a collateral that they bring to the political mortgage market. So that the Luos are collateral, the Kikuyus are collateral, the Kalenjin and the Luhyas and everybody else. And until the day that the population realizes that their so-called leaders have the least regard for them, the country will never change. So you're a typical Kenyan politician in an orderly environment where speeches have been written and are being read. They sound and look like other leaders, but in truth, they are very different from them. So they'll say that Mandela was great. They'll say that he was a great man with a great vision. But that is the end of the story. To them, that is just another event. That is just another story.
It happened over there.
It happened over there in Kenya. And they say it. This is Kenya. This is the only country in the world, I dare say, where people say at weddings, where they things that they ought to say at funerals, and at funerals what they ought to say at weddings. And there are people who have gone to school. We must change this. The political DNA of the Kenyan politician must change before we realize our potential.
And here's a great example. All of us sitting here, 3 different ethnic groups. But all 3 of us, we could never get those votes if we went for, would we? They wouldn't vote for us.
Somebody was asking me last time, who did you vote for? I told them all the candidates I voted for lost. I voted for Martha Karua for president, lost. I voted for Esther Passaris, lost. I voted for Bishop Adoyo, lost. Because these are the individuals that I thought represented the ideals that I stood for. Everybody whom I told that say, but you are mad. One of your own was in the ballot. I say, we don't share any political ideals, and I vote on the basis of the political agenda of the individual.
And as PLO always likes to say, it's not about content of character anymore, Barack. Like Martin Luther King used to say, it's not about content of character. It's the tribe.
Ethnic
my people.
Yeah, which is very unfortunate that here we have mistaken the vessel for the content, for the substance. That, we celebrated 50 years. We're talking about Kenya at 50. And we might very well want to ask ourselves, what is it that we have been celebrating since sometime last year? Have we been celebrating the fact that we have gotten a little older? Or are we celebrating the fact that we are at the start of yet another new dawn? Or is it that we have just become a bit of an overgrown baby?
Celebrating longevity for its own sake. Some may say.
Something in between. Or maybe a juvenile. That's what we are. We're like a teenager with hormones raging. All the attributes, but with no direction.
But that is not to say that we haven't done certain things right.
Sure.
Let's not be too hard on ourselves.
We have done some things right, but I think we have had far too many false dawns.
Without doubt.
So is the glass half empty or half full, PLO?
It's half full.
Well, if it's half full, it must also be half empty.
Gentlemen, we're going to take another break. When we come back, let's look ahead. Let's look ahead, not just the next year. How about the next 50?
Yes. Okay.
We still might be around.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
We intend to be.
The whistle is James. That's PLO. I tell you cannot get two better brains, brighter sparks than these two gentlemen. And they're breaking it down from Africa to here at home. We're going to take a break, come back, look ahead, 2014, and yes, possibly the next 50 years, because the bench will still be around then, and I'll be 97 then. Don't go away. Chef Krina, your holiday special coming to you from the Windsor Golf Hotel and Country Club. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Jeff Kennedy Holiday Special Kenya at 50. What a chat we've had this past 45 minutes or so. If you've missed it, get online, watch it, because this show is going to guide us into the next 360 odd days or so. And yes, PLO, Lumumba, Barack, Maluka, every time they show up, this is the first time I've ever had them both at the same time. What a joy, what a pleasure, what reigns. Listen up. Gentlemen, 2014, let's look ahead to 2014. Obviously, the biggest story Barack had said earlier on is February the 5th. If they don't change the date of the president's attendance of his first day at the trial, that's the biggest day. I guess people are just waiting and watching. Is that what it is, PLO?
I think there's a sense in which Kenyans are waiting with bated breath. The optimistic and the realistic take the view that the president will receive wise counsel and that he'll listen to wise counsel, and that if the court insists that he must be there, he will be there. But then there is the danger that there are those who are close to him who think and are telling him that his status as the president will be diminished on the ground only that he attends. Our counsel to the President of the Republic of Kenya: you are not guilty. You are innocent until proven guilty. Please, if you are required to be in attendance, be there, stand tall, and face the gods of justice. And if you are without blemish, they'll find that you are without blemish.
No doubt, especially if he is without blemish, Barack, he'll come back bigger, better, stronger, won't he?
Yes, definitely. But I think there's also a sense in which the ICC, I do hope, will be able to give a bit of latitude that if the head of state is there during the opening, they will also exercise their discretion to allow him to come back to carry on with the business of government, because like it or hate it, he's the president of the Republic of Kenya. There are things which need to be done, and we need him to come back here to carry on with the affairs of state. One thing worries me, however, that towards the close of the year, one of the things that we kept seeing was a very, very deliberate encroachment on free space that is going to go down in history, not only as the year when we marked our 50th birthday anniversary, it was also the year when the draconian laws against the media were enacted, and with this president lending them his signature. I thought that he didn't need to have done that, having gotten to a point where the fraction of time itself would have been enough to make this bill an act of the National Assembly of Kenya.
PLO, that was disappointing, wasn't it? Of all presidents.
Very disappointing.
Yeah.
I think President Uhuru Kenyatta, having been born and bred, went to school in the United States of America, is exposed, is just about our age. He knows better that you can deal with the press in a totally different way. To introduce or to allow such laws to be introduced during his watch is something that I think historians will remember about his regime. And it's not too late. There is still time yet, and I hope that he will rise to the occasion and do that which is right and good to ensure that we don't have such laws in our books.
Yeah.
But I fear that he will not. This month, January, we're expecting a bill on the police service to be tabled before Parliament. And if what we have seen of this bill is anything to go by, we've got every cause to be afraid that the police can shoot to kill, that the president can bring in foreign police officers to discharge certain duties, that we cannot hold the police to account before the Complaints Commission, and so on and so forth. This must worry
But
us.
Barack, I can't agree with you more. But what worries me then is that the opposition is so episodic in the manner in which it is responding to these issues. I believe these are contingent issues around which the opposition can marshal not only their members in parliament, but also the population. We have seen what is happening in Thailand. We have seen what is happening in Ukraine, and we have seen what is happening in other areas. We are not calling for a revolution, but we are saying that there comes a time in the history of a nation when the people of that nation must be called to demonstrate their disgust and to dramatize it, even if it is in the streets. The opposition should be leading us in that direction, if only to send a message to the administration that you cannot take the population for granted. They are not.
But we all seem to be emasculated in all this. Either we're just on the outside looking in, or we're just too complacent. Barack?
Well, what we do is we say it's about the doctors. It's not about me. It's about the media. It's not about me. It's about the NGOs, and so on and so forth. Then the time comes when there's nobody left to speak against these things. And then, of course, the political opposition, really, when you look at them as they are constituted in this country, they are just the flip side of the people in government. There is no fundamental ideological divide between the two. It's just another side that would do the same things and just now feeling relatively deprived. In fact, they would essentially wish that they were the ones in power doing the things which the Jubilee government is doing.
You know, I said at one time that the forests have changed, but the monkeys have not. And I think that is the problem in which we are when you talk about the opposition, that in many ways, the opposition as presently constituted are just suffering from what one may call the sour grape syndrome. They themselves would want to do the very same things. But this is also the time for the opposition to liberate themselves from the traditional role of the opposition, oppose everything and propose nothing. They can come out and help the NGOs, because there are very many good men and women who have been speaking out. People like my friend Maina Kiai, Makawa Mutua, Mudhoni Wanyeki, and many others who have been speaking out things that are unpopular, but they are pointing in the right direction. We must support them, and the government must listen to them.
Yeah, and the rest of us must play a role. And I keep saying that, you know, we've become so complacent. It's like blasé. It's like we don't really care because it doesn't affect us. Like Barack said.
The media, for example, and I think that this media fraternity in this country has supped with Jubilee. They have danced with the Jubilee, times dancing with the code and supping with the code, and failing to set agenda. As somebody who purports a bit of affinity with professional journalism, I can tell you that the media is essentially about three things. First, it's to inform the public. Secondly, is to editorialize the things which we call op-ed, opinion and editorials. But third and more fundamentally is to set agenda. That the media, for example, when we talk about the doctors' strike, they should go beyond the superficial surface scratching and tell us what the underlying factors are. what are the legitimate factors on both sides of this debate? Has our role just become that of entertainment, infotainment, looking for the dramatic aspects of whatever it is in a story without getting to the depth and substance of issues? 2014 must be the year of setting agenda. I would like to see a different media fraternity from the one that I have seen in the past.
Yeah, PLO, what's it going to take? Does it have to be an event of such magnitude that'll shock this country into acting? What's it going to take?
You know, Jeff, as I look at 2014 and I look at the entire Jubilee celebration, there is a sense in which people are beginning to ask a number of critical questions. And I think that is a good thing, asking the critical questions. And we as a country must therefore say, if in the last 50 years we did not realize our potential because we did not conduct ourselves in a particular manner, the old habits must then be discarded. And I can't agree with Barack Muluka more that history has consistently demonstrated that where the media was pointing in the right direction, where the media was speaking the right language, then these individuals, if they don't enjoy the oxygen of publicity, then they'll begin to behave in a specific way, which is in the best interest of the country.
And we do have that power, don't we, Barack? We have that power. We just don't realize it.
We've got the power. We have squandered it. That all the time we are looking for very, very kind of simple, sensational sort of things, following politicians at funerals to see how they are running each other down, instead of looking for things that can make a difference. That when we were talking about 50 years, for example, we needed to interrogate 3 critical moments in the story of this nation. 1963 was the dawn of independence. Then we had the 2010, which was the year of the Constitution. And before that, we had 2003, when we had the new government of President Mwai Kibaki. Those were 3 dawns, but they were false dawns because nothing really changed. Now, when we were celebrating 50 years, what dawn was it? Was it the dawn of...
Barack, you say it so well that even as we are celebrating 50 years, who are the individuals who are receiving national accolades? Because this is how you look at a country. Who is receiving your Elder of the Burning Spear?
I saw some
Who is
names.
receiving your Elder of the Moran of the... I saw some names which in other countries would receive awards of dishonor. But in this country, as I've said elsewhere, we demonize our saints and canonize our demons. And going forward and looking at 2014 and beyond and 2030 and beyond, we must begin to move in the right direction to de-ethnicize. And Barack talked about something. When you look at this arrangement, for example, the Kalenjin, and let's say it directly, the Kalenjin say, we want our 50%. The Kikuyu elite say, we want our 50%. What about the Taita? What about the Taveta? What about the Wata, the Sengwer, the Luo, the Kamba, the Luhya? They should look for another country. We must, in the nature of things, remember that this country comprises 56, not 42, 56 odd groups who must be represented at the dinner table. And if they are not, they are going to upset the dinner table to everybody's detriment.
Your predictions about who's going to win that?
Yes,
Hello.
Yes. I think Germany is going to win this thing.
You said Germany.
I have no doubt in mind.
I think Brazil cannot be beaten at home.
What about Spain? Can they repeat?
No.
They cannot.
No such possibility.
It's going to remain in South America.
African country doing better than quarters? Or at least get into the quarters?
Well, let's pray and let's have prayer warriors working on it.
At least that will be some hope in 2014. At least we can look forward to that.
Indeed.
But other than that, you're right. I mean, bottom line, if we don't get our act together, the next 50 years, we might as well just shut down this country and say, put a big sign saying, closed for repairs.
But Jeff and Barack will have something, and I'll just say one sentence. Do you see very slowly in the former French colonies in Africa that France is actually coming back?
Yes.
Whether it's in Mali or Mauritania or
Central Africa.
in Central African Republic or Cote d'Ivoire. And if we are not very careful, we may not have the British coming back, but the Chinese are coming in slowly but surely, complete with Confucius schools in our universities. In a few years' time, our independence will only be flag independence if we are not careful.
And we'll all be saying ni hao ma.
Oh, you'll not be Jeff.
No,
You'll be Miang Miang Chow.
Miang Miang Chow. Barack.
You see, this man called Daniel Branch, he's put together one of the most lucid pieces of work on Kenya. Kenya between 1963 and 2011. And it's titled Between Hope and Despair. That at one moment we look like we are just about to stand up and walk tall. Then the next moment it's a disappointment. That this should be the year when we begin waking up to reality. That the Christmas spirit, which has just been infused in us these past few days, can actually find its place in the hearts and minds of the men and women of the cloth. Because our malady, our Malay, begins with the death or the atrophy at the very best of the moral and ethical pillars of society. That you go to the shrine, the holy man of God, as we say from time to...
Alafu, kaka braza, mkinisaidia na scripts nitafurahia. Ndo Winnie
of cloth can start doing their work. They had to do that before we changed Section 2A, before we removed it from the old constitution, that the people of the academy are going to play their role. They are not going to worship outside empty tribal shrines. That the people who are called the fourth estate are not going to wait until when draconian laws are enacted against them for them to start setting agenda. And that this year can be the year that puts this country on the road to a glorious 100-year celebration. And we intend to be there.
Absolutely. Pielo, last word.
Jeff, this country has potential. Every time I travel to African countries and I come back, that is when I realize that this country can make strides. And I believe that if we get our act together, if we exercise the ghost of ethnicity, if we exercise the ghost of greed, if we exercise the ghost of mediocrity and embrace meritocracy as our guiding principle, then in 10 years' time, this country will be a true middle-level economy. The choice is ours.
And the time is now.
And the time indeed.
And we are the people.
The people are us.
Yes.
This is Mami Nyao saying thank you very much.
Have a good year, Mami Nyao.
Happy New Year.
I don't know that one. Happy New Year.
Good to see you, gentlemen. I hope we can keep talking throughout the year. All right, good job. Hello, Lavumba and Barack with the 2 hours Baluka. Coming on the bench and giving me a new name. I can't even repeat it now. I forgot it. Mingao. This has been Jeff Koinange Holiday Special Kenya at 50. Coming to you from the Windsor Golf Hotel and Country Club. From next week on, we are back live. So you can tweet, Facebook, bring in all your thoughts. In the meantime, you can even tweet this one. My handle, at Koinange Jeff. Let us know what you thought of our two guests and the way forward. Because at the end of the day, it's going to take all hands on deck. We cannot clap with one hand, you know that. It's going to take all of us, considered effort, to move this nation, this continent, forward into the future. Thanks so much for watching. The news continues in just a moment. Good night. Good luck. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Santa son.
Thank you.
Thank you.